Okay, so we'll start the session.
Okay.
On behalf of Central Zoo Authority, I welcome you all to the episode 5 of Zooming Conservation, our online talk series that shines light on the ground efforts of wildlife conservation. This session was specially focused on the occasion of World Environment Day, which is celebrated on June. Today, we are thrilled to focus on the fascinating world of pheasants and their conservation. Pheasants with their vibrant plumage and unique behavior are not only delightful to observe but also play a crucial role in ecosystem. Our key speaker today is a distinguished figure in the field of wildlife conservation, Dr. Rahul Kaul sir. Dr. Kaul is the director of IUCN SSC Center of Species Survival India and the co-chair of IUCN SSC Caliform Specialist Group. With career spanning 35 years, Dr. Kaul has made significant contribution to conservation of galliforms and other wildlife species. He has obtained PhD in 1990 from University of Kashmir and Newcastle University, where he studied the ecology of cheer pheasant in Kumaon Himalayas. He then joined Wildlife Trust of India, where he held various leadership roles, culminating in his tenure as CEO until his retirement in 2024. Dr. Kaul has led to numerous scientific research projects, expeditions, and long-term conservation initiatives across the multiple countries. His extensive experience is reflected in his numerous books, peer-reviewed articles, and the training of young biologists worldwide. Dr. Kaul has also served as a crucial member on the Committee of Pheasants in Central Zoo Authority. Without further ado, let's dive into our today's topic of pheasant conservation. So, we are honored to have you with us. Over to you. Just share the screen, yeah.
Thank you very much, Purva. I hope I am audible to everybody. Uh, uh, First of all, my apologies for having postponed this talk for today because yesterday I was traveling and I could not attend this talk. I'm extremely grateful to Central Zoo Authority for having invited me to present this talk before you. One, and the main reason why is that they are discussing pheasants, a topic that seems to have gone out of public discourse. And hopefully, we shall share some insights into what is lacking and maybe share some ideas as to how we might be able to improve where we need to. When Apurva told me that we'd like a talk on pheasants, and it coming from Caesar Day, I was automatically kind of fixated on talking about the conservation breeding program of the Caesar Day on pheasants. But then the letter came, and then the flyer came, and it said zooming conservation. So I thought, no, it has to be a little broader based. So what I have done today, or for a presentation, is there are about 25-30 slides. I am hoping that it gets over in about 45 minutes. I'll spend about first 10-15 minutes on telling people what pheasants are and what is their status in India. Then we go to a few slides that talk about what we have done so far as pheasants are concerned, as conservation is concerned. So it's largely government initiatives and, of course, the civil society initiatives. And then last few slides on what should we do to improve some ideas. And of course, if there's time, then I'm very happy to take a few questions. So, and also let me warn the participants at the outset is that I'm not controlling the presentation. there was some hitch in my sharing the screen. So Apurva will be moving, shifting slides. So there might be some kind of confusion in what I'm saying and what is being shown. So bear with me. So Apurva, can we have the first slide, please? So what are pheasants basically? Pheasants uh, are part of a larger bird order called the galliforms, of which there are about 300 odd species worldwide. And these are basically split into five families. So Phasianidae is the one that is the largest family, and that, of course, has the pheasants as we know them, the quail, partridge, and francolins, and the grouse. Then we have the Odontophorinae, we have the Numenidae, we have the Crassidae, and we have the Megapodidae. Megapodidae, for instance, is megapods. Crassidae is crassids that are found in the South America, and then turkeys and so forth and so on. So as you see, pheasants are a very small part of the whole group of or order of galliforms. Now, worldwide, can I can we have the next slide, please? Worldwide, there are okay, okay. So what are pheasants now? As I said, worldwide there are about 50 odd species of pheasants, and they are largely Asian in origin, and the distribution is restricted to Asia, except one species that is found in Congo peafowl. All the other species you might have heard of pheasants in the U.S. and the in Europe and the UK. They're all kind of species, a single species, the ringneck pheasant, the Chinese ringneck pheasant, basically. That is naturalized now. That was actually went uh, in 1400s, 15th century, 14th century, with the traders, and then have then naturalized in these countries. So the pheasant, as they call it, the British they call the pheasant, or Americans, is not a naturally occurring pheasant. There, it's a naturalized pheasant. So all these 49 species found in Asia, there's one in the Congo peafowl found in the Congo Basin. So pheasants are large. They are ground dwelling. They have limited powers of uh, flight. They can fly, they can glide, but their wing beat is extremely lethargic. So therefore, they are not able to fly very rapidly. But to escape predation, they can glide very fast down the hill, especially in the places where they are found on slopes. Uh, they also show sexual dimorphism, as you know. The males are extremely showy. The males are extremely colorful. The females are drab. Males, in most cases, are larger, and that's the due to the secondary sexual characters that they display, and try and attract their mates. Uh, Red jungle fowl, which is very similar to the the, the country fowl that we know of, is the ancestor of progenitor of all domestic poultry. So all the chicken that we eat in this world today has descended from the red jungle fowl, and of course, Indian peafowl is also a pheasant, and it's our national bird. Next. So as I said, number of species of pheasants are 50, 49 found in India. There is so it's just a status of pheasants worldwide. So there are none that are critically endangered, thankfully. Uh, 3 are endangered. 20 are vulnerable. One is they are threatened, and least concern are 26. So they are not doing that badly as some other species might be doing. Right. Next. So now coming to India, uh, uh, what I'll do in this talk is I might at some point of time kind of switch between pheasants and galliforms. Galliforms because it's a much wider group, and I'll just explain why. Uh, uh, it largely is on pheasants because work has been done on pheasants only, but there are two kind of species of uh, the partridge quail and francolins. Uh, so there are 25 in all in India, the PQF, of which two are threatened. I was just a short while back chatting with Apurva, and these two species are perhaps the most threatened of all galliforms in the country. And we generally don't talk about it, although if there are people who are birders here, they would know about it. The first one, the PQF, is the Himalayan quail, uh, a bird that was, I think, discovered to science in 1851, and 25 years later, or it was 1829, I don't remember fully now, and in 1876, it was last seen. So the last reported Himalayan quail is dated 1876. So it's been a century and a half, and we have not seen this bird. So it's, for all practical purposes, is extinct. The second PQF is the Manipur bush quail, uh, and that's also a species that has been very less seen in the recent past, and therefore, although I won't say it's extinct, but I think it's fairly rare, and it needs concerted attention. Uh, Pheasants, of course, there are 17 pheasants in India, and 8 are threatened. I'll talk more about these as go in my subsequent slides. And there's one megapode, which is a Nicobar megapode found in the Andaman and Nicobar Islands. Next slide, please. Apurva, next slide, please. Okay, so coming to pheasants, as I said, we look at all the pheasants that are found. Uh, they are spread all across the country, uh, largely forested tracts and grassland tracts. But if you combine these with the PQF, the, the, the whole Caliform as a group, then I don't see too much area that is left uncovered in the country. Galliforms occur right from the Trans Himalayas, where you have snowpox and snow partridge and other Tibetan partridge, and down to the the, the moist forests, uh, you have arid areas, you have our dry deciduous forests, you have temperate forests. Everywhere you'll find a galliform or two. So galliforms are fairly well represented. Uh, and pheasants, as I said, also are uh, kind of represented all over. So for monal has two species here, Himalayan monal and the Scletus monal. And the ones in the red basically are those that are threatened. So you'll find these are 8 species that are threatened, and the rest are not threatened. Next slide, please. Apurva. So what we'll do is very quickly I'll go through these 8 species of pheasants that are threatened. We not don't want to talk about the non-threatened. And in case you want to know a little more about non-threatened, you can ask me at the end of the talk, and we can discuss those. For the sake of uh, the keeping within the time limits, we just confine to threatened pheasants of India because these are the ones that are most kind of that need most attention. So let's have the next slide, Apurva, please. Okay, so we'll talk about tragopans first. So as I said, 3 tragopan species are kind of threatened. The first one is the western tragopan. Western tragopan, as the name suggests, is part found in the western part of the Himalaya from 2,700 meters to 3,300 meters. These are species that are, and all tragopan species basically are uh, forest, true forest species, and are very prone to disturbance. So therefore, any small or large disturbance will affect the populations, or the tragopans might move from their area to those areas. So Western tragopan. Have the next slide. There'll be a map, perhaps. Yeah. Okay. So the first one, the yellow one, is the Western tragopan. There's a little bit of error that's crept in. The yellow has gone into the Ladakh areas. It's basically it goes westwards a bit, covering Chamba. But so J&K and Himachal is the predominant area of the Western tragopan. And then the satire tragopan, largely Uttarakhand. And then it goes right through the Nepal into Sikkim and then Bhutan, and uh, and parts of kind of West Bengal, the northern West Bengal. Uh, then there's the Temminck tragopan, which is found across Arunachal, but that's really not threatened. But it's got a very wide range in China, and it has just some distribution in Arunachal Pradesh. And then you'll see this red one, which is the Black Tragopan. It goes across Arunachal and then down into Nagaland and Mizoram. Now, tragopans basically, at least the ones that are found in the Himalaya, these are these show vertical migration. So basically, they'll you'll find them at a certain altitude in the breeding areas in summer, and then they'll descend when there's snow at those altitudes. They'll descend down. So therefore, they basically need a lot more vertical space than horizontal space, and therefore uh, they tend to be kind of very sparsely distributed, because normally other pheasant species they'll share space above and below as well, but this species does not seem to kind of it operates in those vertical spaces, and therefore they are fairly low in their densities. Next, the second is the chair pheasant. Chair pheasant is a true Western Himalayan species, and it's quite contrary to the tragopans. It's not found in the forest. It's found in the grasslands and scrublands uh, that you find between the forests, or especially in the Himalayan belt between 1,500 and 2,500 meters. It's a fairly hardy species, and is actually thrives on a little bit of disturbance to its habitat by anthropogenic activities. Next, next, Apurva. Yeah, so this is basically the map. maximum model of the clear distribution. And you see the red patches. These are largely Himachal and Uttarakhand. There are some areas of concentrations in J&K, but also across Nepal to the Kali Gandaki basin in the central Nepal. Next. Now, this is the Hume's pheasant. The Hume's pheasant is, and these group of pheasants that I'll be talking about now, there are three of them now. These are species that are extant in uh, parts outside our country. For example, this species is largely found in Myanmar, but it also comes into westwards into parts of uh, your Mizoram and Manipur, right? So they are these populations are peripheral, small, but they are Indian. So if we look at this species globally, uh, this might still be vulnerable because of its large distribution in Myanmar. But if you look at India, I think this species becomes really important in the Indian context because of the very narrow range and very few numbers that are available here. Next. Yeah, so if you look at this range, this is a wide range across in Myanmar, but a very narrow range on the bordering areas of Mizoram and Manipur, and it's found in kind of areas around Murlen in Manipur, in Mizoram. Sorry. Next. So this is the Scletus monal, again a largely Chinese species, but seems to have kind of come into the northern Arunachal Pradesh as well. So again, very rare and found basically just above where Himalayan monal is. It doesn't really replace Himalayan monal, but it's just above Himalayan monal in Arunachal Pradesh only. Next. Yeah. So typical monal habitat will have kind of high altitude subalpine forests, and then the forest edges where there's scrub above the tree line. That's where these pheasants are found. Stratus one. Next, and this is the Tibetan eared pheasant. Again, this is a pheasant predominantly found in China. But I don't think people have found it. Anybody's recently found it here, although it's known that it's found in areas of near Tawang, Arunachal Pradesh, and traditionally these eared pheasants, Tibetan as well as the white-eared pheasant, they seem to kind of relish being close to monasteries where the monks feed them and they kind of flock around the monasteries. I wonder whether that happens in Tawang because Tawang also has a lot of monasteries, and this would be very interesting to see whether it is following the same habit of of kind of frequenting the monasteries. Next. Yeah, so this is basically the kind of distribution. As I said, northwards it's found in China and comes into Arunachal, a very small variant. Next. Now, again, a pheasant, which is the green peafowl, Muticus. It's I don't know whether it's really found in India. Uh, I don't think people have seen it lately. It used to be found in Bangladesh. It's extinct from Bangladesh. It is found in Myanmar, but I don't know of anybody who has seen it recently in India. There are accounts of it appearing very close to the Myanmar border in Mizoram. Of course, there are some in Aizawl Zoo. I've seen them. And these were captured or bought from the bird market from across the border from Myanmar. So, so the possibility is there that they might occur very close to the border, but I don't think anybody has seen it unless I am corrected. Next. So again, a species that is found in lowland evergreen tropical forests, uh, very dense forests, and and in places like Indonesia and Malaysia, it's where it used to actually occur. It's now it has great problems because of oil palm plantations. So from such habitats to oil palm plantations is a big change. Next. So now at a glance, what do we have? We have these 17 pheasants, and they are distributed across these 29 states that in India. And and where is the maximum distribution and occurrence? See, the one with 10 species is Arunachal Pradesh. Now, Arunachal has five threatened species, so five threatened pheasants, and five least concern pheasants. Likewise, if you see the Western Himalaya, Uttarakhand, Himachal, it has its share of, most have seven with two threatened species. Uttarakhand has seven with eight with three threatened species, I think. And the rest, of course, as I said, there is representation of pheasants across, but these are all kind of least concern. So, that is where our onus, that is where our emphasis should be. The states which have these red bars. Okay, next. So, now coming to these conservation efforts. So, what have we done for the pheasants till now? Uh, and of course, I'll split this into government and non-government in situ and ex situ, right? So, the first thing that the government, of course, is their PA network. Now, most PAs, there's a network of about 700, 800 PAs in India. Most will have Californ. So therefore, they are willy-nilly being afforded protection by this network, right? So whether they need or they don't need, they are being protected. That's fine. That's great. But there are three species, as I said: Blat's tragopan, Hume's pheasants, Cletus monal, where the PA network uh, is extremely low. Blat's tragopan, for instance, as I said, it's found in the northeast, so you might find it in Eagle's Nest, you might find it in uh, Neha Wildlife Sanctuary. In between, we have no information. There are two or three PAs, sanctuaries between Eagle's Nest and Neha, but we don't know the status of this. And then coming down towards Nagaland, Nagaland has only one PA that is dedicated to this Blast Ragapan, is the Fakim Wildlife Sanctuary. But Fakim, frankly, is an extremely small sanctuary that's been carved out of Saramati Hills. So it's 6 square kilometers or 5 square kilometers, tiny. But other than that, this this pheasant is really going, and we need to look after this pheasant. The PA network is not adequate to cover or protect it. The second is Hume's pheasant. As Hume's is a peripheral species that's come in, and mind you, Blythe's tragopan, actually that type specimen is the Blythe, which is found in Nagaland. So it is a Naga. It's an Indian species. It's described from India, so therefore it's not a peripheral species in that sense. Hume's is a peripheral species, but we need to basically uh, decide whether we want it, and if we want it, then we have to do something about it. Of course, you can't do very much if the distribution is limited, and you don't have uh, you don't have it in places where you could have have a protected area. So therefore, one or two protected areas that there are uh, does have this species, but that's about all. So Humes is also uh, on the list of Caesar conservation breeding species. So there are some efforts that are happening towards conserving the species. And Scletus monal, really, uh, we don't know enough about its distribution in India to basically be able to say, okay, fine, this is where we want to establish PAs for Scletus monal. So it's a species that needs a lot more information before we can plan for it. But what uh, the government has done in Nagaland is they have recently kind of declared 130 community reserves. So these are small forest areas. Some of them are large. That also hold large tragopan population. So one such area that is known and might be known to a lot of people and participants here is the Panoma Tragopan Reserve. This is about 100 square kilometer of very nice pristine forest, and which is being protected by people, have been protecting for a long time, and ostensibly for the Western Tragopan, or for the Blythe's Tragopan. So therefore, now what the government has done is they have kind of converted those into community reserves, formal community reserves, so that there's a little bit of funding going into the community through that, and also in exchange, there's for some protection of these species. There are 4 or 5 areas. Uh, there are two such community reserves. I think in Saramati area, there's one or two in Yonsang area, Siroi, not Siroi. I I can't recollect the names, Sorchong or something. I can't recollect the name at the moment, but there are a couple of them in the central part of Nagaland, and one is this Kanawha, which is the largest one, and then there's another one which is kind of further north to Konam. See, the issue is for us to be able to, or for the government to be able to plan conservation initiatives. We should know the status, and there should be certain areas which should be designated as key sites, and which should be then kind of monitored to be able to uh, assess where the kind of conservation effort is needed, and where it is not needed. That thing is not being done by any state as far as I know. There are no estimates of galliform uh, abundance anywhere in the country. There's some states tried peafowl estimations once, but I don't know how accurate or how good they were, and whether they actually came out with the figures or not. But otherwise, I don't think there's any government figures on pheasant estimates. Now, if we look at, uh, can we go? Can we go back? Can we go back? Can we go back on that slide? Yes. So there are 22 identified species with the Ministry of Environment and Forest under that's endangered species for the recovery. One of the species is the Nicobar megapode. So there is the government has actually allocated, uh, acknowledged that Nicobar megapode needs help and is listed as one of the species. But we have not. At least I have not heard anything about what has been done under this project and what have they found. Uh, Other than that, government efforts, there are kind of there's a lot of information that's been generated by universities, thesis, and publications, and also AMU, ABC College, then institutions like WI and ZSI have produced enough information that actually keeps us interested. Next. So now XU2 by the government. CZA has identified what 11 species uh, of pheasants to be taken up under conservation breeding. And if you see, there are a lot of these peripheral pheasants also. There's a Tibetan haired pheasant and Sclatus monal, and also Fumes pheasant also. There is acknowledgement that yes, these are species that are rare, and therefore something should be done about this. So yes, there is acknowledgement, uh, and CZA also has roped in 11 coordinating and 8 participating zoos to effect these conservation programs. We'll talk about these conservation programs a little later in the slide, in the talk. Yes, next. So non-government, the civil society on their part has also played a role I mean, it started with the Himachal Peasant Project when Carson and Gaston uh, and the Himachal Forest Department conducted these surveys across Himachal Pradesh, and it is set baselines for and generated a lot of interest in what pheasants were at that time. These surveys happened in the early 80s, 1980s. Then there's this UP Cheer Pheasant project, which I was a part of, set by Newcastle University. And so that basically produced information on the cheer pheasant across its range. And then the WPS set up an office in Delhi, South Asia regional office, and then undertook kind of detailed studies on Western Tragopan, cheese, Atayat Tragopan, Temix Tragopan, Glass Tragopan, and so on. So considerable amount of information on these species was generated then, and but that this was active uh, between 1994 to around 2004 2005, and after that uh, it's come down. Interest in this in the galliform seems to have waned both in the civil society as well as in the government. There is WPA, India Wild Pheasant Association in India, that is doing small things and trying to keep the flag going, but it's been an uphill kind of a battle. Next. XU2, I mean, now, outside the government, there's very little can be done, XU2, because animal handling is basically a government function. But I was part of, in 2003, I was part of a very initial training uh, which we conducted on behalf of the Caesar Day, and where we got two trainers from UK, and the participants were largely kind of select zoo directors or representatives of the zoos, and some forest officers. and that perhaps set the basis for what we now call conservation breeding, and because the Himachal conservation breeding project set off from that meeting, and that impetus that we had generated there, then carried on for the next few years as part of the Himachal Wildlife Project. And then CZA also, because it was funded by CZA, they also kind of got interested and produced this list of species that should be taken up for kind of conservation breeding. Of course, CZA by themselves would have had independent ideas as well. Next. So now, what were the results of these the the conservation breeding projects by CZA? I'm afraid they have not been very good. And although I'm kind of talking on platform of organized by the CZA, but I think the results don't show the kind of the results are not in very good light. Of the 11 conservation breeding projects, 3 couldn't begin. These are all in Yachuli. Yachuli is in Arunachal. They had identified a facility in Yachuli, but they could not take off because of non-availability of founders. Uh, and out of these 11, 3 couldn't start. 4 have no surviving individuals now. So they started, but shut down because there are no individuals now. The grey jungle fowl, red jungle fowl seem to be thriving. And I don't know why the red jungle fowl. I know why it was started, because there was this at one point of time there were questions about the purity of the wild red jungle fowl stock, and therefore, as kind of a safeguard, uh, they started the red jungle fowl conservation breeding project, and of course it bred and bred. Now we really don't know how pure they are, because there have been instances, because where if a female dies, then keepers going to the market and picking up a desi murgi ki female, and so all that thing is happening. So we don't know how pure they are, but their numbers are very high. So I don't know what to do with those numbers, what the government proposes to do with those numbers. Large Tragopan in Nagaland have individuals, but they have not been breeding. Uh, so they're producing one chick. It goes to a certain age, and then it dies, or an adult dies, and this chick replaces. So there are kind of on average 5-6 pairs there, but they're not doing the basically the, they are not progressing as far as the conservation breeding project goes, which conservation breeding project basically is uh, breeding for conservation. So breeding in captivity, but for wild, for the eventual release in the wild, and that's not happened anywhere. Himachal has they started Sheer and Western Tragopan, and they began extremely well. It was done quite scientifically to start with, and it was continued also. So there have been efforts in Himachal Pradesh. Cheer, I know, have been some cheer have been released. They also were kind of monitored uh, using radio tags. Uh, I don't know what the results were. Western Tragopan, I believe that some Western Tragopans also were released in the wild, but I would like to hear if from the participants later on if they have more information on the outcomes of the Western Tragopan and the cheer. They're still doing it. They have a kind of a committee that oversees this work, and they are serious. But have they succeeded fully? I don't think they've succeeded fully. Next. So, so, so what have been the shortcomings? One is bad oversight. So I I think we need, one is we need accountability. Uh, Accountability comes from uh, the projects being target driven. I have not seen any of these that are actually target driven. Target driven means that if we start a project, we say, okay, fine, in 15 years, I must repopulate 2 sites. Then I work backwards and say, okay, fine, if I need to repopulate these 2 sites, how many individuals do I need to repopulate? Then how many founders will give me those numbers? So there's a whole process, and then you said, okay, fine, after 5 years I need these many individuals. After 10 years I need these many surplus. After 15 years I can release. So those targets are not followed, and they are not set also. So the government works differently. They have their own way of working, and they have their own work of monitoring, which doesn't necessarily convey success on the ground. Uh, so states might not be interested or might not have the required capacity to deal with conservation treaty. We have seen, for instance, Nagaland. We've seen Nagaland seeking help, that we have not been able to kind of produce or breed animals. Why? So so obviously there is lack of capacity. Uh, I don't know whether CZA organizes these capacity building programs or exposure programs. I think that is something that they should consider. Uh, next, next, and of course, one important thing is the weak institute efforts. So the thing is, as I said, conservation breeding is about conservation in situ, ex situ aiding in situ. So in situ part is extremely ignored, completely ignored. Uh, they're happy producing enclosures, and then raise birds in enclosures. Then what happens in the wild? Where do we release? Why do we release? That part is very often. So what are my 2 words for uh, what we can do? First, first, are pheasants or galliforms a priority with the government? I don't know. Uh, uh, frankly, if it is, then it might be time to launch something called a project pheasant or project galliform. Uh, Now you see, we have a project tiger. The project tiger is something that now encompasses 49 tiger reserves, very large areas. So there is conservation protection happening in those areas that are under Project Tiger, and that also provides protection to other species. Right now, you have Project Snow Leopard that is Trans-Himalaya. So Trans-Himalaya, fauna and flora of Trans-Himalaya, snow leopard. Obviously, then it will also talk about the prey species of the snow leopard, the threats to snow leopard, and how in the Trans-Himalaya those can be ameliorated. Likewise, there is nothing for temperate and tropical or evergreen forests, semi-evergreen forests of Northeast. So maybe because pheasants are, of course, extremely good flagship species. And a lot of people call pheasants, especially some pheasants like Western Tragopan or Tragopans as such, as kind of uh, indicators of habitat quality. So therefore, these could be extremely good candidates to launch a project for the Himalaya as such, uh, and with these as your flagships, and then the whole issue of not only pheasants but other ungulates and the pressures on the habitats and what strategies we require for increasing numbers. Those things come in. Next, of course, CZA needs to relook at uh, how it's running its conservation breeding projects. And I was told that yes, they have formed a committee to look into the conservation breeding projects, and then there's a committee that basically will kind of make some recommendations, which is extremely good. Next, but I think CZA when the project when it takes on a project, I think it needs to take more ownership. At the moment, what happens is uh, they will identify, the state puts up a proposal, it gets accepted, it gets funded, and then the CZA withdraws its pedal from the project. I think CZA needs to say take more onus of a conservation breeding project and to kind of take it to its logical conclusion. It it of course will need long term involvement and long term commitment, but that is if you want a project to succeed. Uh, I think CZA has to show more greater leadership role in that project than it is doing now. Next, and of course rehash the list of 11 species, and of course there some of them are really non-starters, and if even if it takes three species and says okay fine, we commit 10 years to this three species and this is how we're going to do it, as I said that it's target driven. At the end of 10 years I want uh, 20 individuals to be released in this site, 15 individuals released in this site. That is how projects might be planned, and that is how we achieve success. Otherwise, it's as a projects will meander on. CZA will keep giving money, and the states will keep spending money, and we'll still have three individuals, two individuals, no individual, one individual. That's it. Next, and of course, states have to come on board, but the states have to come on board uh, with the understanding that it is a long-term commitment, and from their side also there has to be commitment of either resources, both financial as well as human. Only then it's going to achieve success. Next, and as a long-term commitment is something that we need. Is that all? Yeah. So I think it's about an hour that I've spent. Uh, Probably. So if there are one or two questions, there's still 5 minutes. One or two questions, I'll be happy to answer.
I would request participants if there are any more questions, if there are any questions from their side, they can either unmute themselves or write in the chat box.
Can't hear you.
Am I audible, sir? Am I audible, sir?
It seems to be breaking. You're starting off, but then kind of it trails on. Anyway, if some anybody else has any questions,
So I only have some questions for you.
Yeah.
So there seems to be one question from Agartha.
Yeah.
Uh, Agartha, can you write the question?
Ma'am, actually, there was a question I have in one of those PPTs, and there were these animals which I wanted to ask and what they like are about. Because basically, I think when you were explaining that, I was not joining at that time. I did not have this app, and now I am already on my mother's phone. So
So, Agartha, we can do one thing. I think it's been recorded, so it's on YouTube also, I think. So you can go on that YouTube link and then see the presentation again, and you'll get some ideas. In case you still want to ask some more questions, do ask Caesar Day, and we'll get you the answers.
okay, so.
So this session will be uploaded on YouTube after we end this, so you can watch it there. So I want to ask you one. What are the some unique behavioral traits or adaptations that pheasants take up? Like when we talk about conservation breeding, what is the specific factors that we need to consider?
No, see, there's enough knowledge on that, uh, because peasants have been bred for a long time now, and successfully so. And but it's not come straight away. It's come with a lot of failures. But from each failure, people have learned. So the, the 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 first failure is females don't lay eggs. Hens don't lay eggs. The second failure is hens lay eggs, but they are infertile. Then there might be fertile eggs, but they are not laying at one place. They are laying all over. So, but these are indications of why that is happening. There are reasons why a hen is not feeling comfortable or safe using a nest, or so. So then there are solutions also. Then the chicks hatch, but chicks die, or chicks die at a certain age. Then there are husbandry problems. There are hatching problems. There are then once the chicks hatch, there are husbandry problems, and then if they come to an adult state, then there are breeding problems again. And if we still have kind of harvestable surplus, we release them in the wild, then there are survival problems in the wild. Right. So, but there are enough studies that have actually uh, tried to kind of minimize these, and there are ways in which we can kind of minimize all these losses, or minimize all these factors, so that we do have a kind of a successful release stock available. But it's as I said, it's something that will not happen overnight. Uh, I am aware the Blatz Tragopan facility in Nagaland has been going on since, I think, late 80s,
Yeah.
late 1980s. And at one point of time, they were doing well. They used to have chicks also. I don't think they released them. But then suddenly, so it's as I said, it's capacity, and I think it's also motivation. But we must understand one thing, that uh, they are not chicken that we are used to kind of raising in our backyard. They are wild birds. Fine, they are chicken family, but they are wild birds, so they will need different. Their needs are different. The ways we handle them are different. But I also know from pheasant breeders that if you are able to feed a pheasant from your hand. Uh, so you have tamed it so much, then it's the most likely to breed, because the purpose of a conservation breeding project is to produce animals, right? Now, and for conservation breeding projects, it is recommended that parent breeding is actually kind of tried, and parent rearing is enforced, because a parent breeding basically then imparts to the chicks all the survival skills in the wild. So the mothers teach the children what food to eat, how to avoid predators. So all that, those skills are passed on by the parents, and therefore the 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 chick, when it becomes an adult, is fitter to take life in the wild. Uh, it's been seen that the chicks coming out of an incubator uh, do not survive well in the wild. You might have an individual there, but their survival value in the wild is almost zero, because they have no survival skills. And that's actually been seen in Cheer Pheasant project in Margala Hills, Pakistan, where where after great difficulties they were able to raise chicks, and when they released them, the chicks didn't know that they had to go up in the trees to roost. So they stayed on the ground, and foxes came and cleaned them up. So, so, so who teaches those? So it's the parents who teach. So parent rearing is extremely important. Becomes extremely important in pheasant this thing, conservation breeding.
So that will come under the enrichment section of when we
I
raise
can hear
it.
you.
So that will come under the enrichment process of rearing animals.
Well, you'll have to type it out.
Am I
Can't
audible
hear you.
now? Am I audible now, sir?
There's
Yeah, there are some
yes,
questions.
there's a question from Kritika. Uh, yeah, of course, genetics is extremely important, especially for conservation breeding project. Genetics is extremely important. There are kind of stud books, but I don't know how strictly CZA enforces stud books in their conservation breeding projects. I know Blyth's had some for some time, so therefore, and stud books basically are meant to basically maximize genetic diversity and in the population, and make sure that the right individuals are mated to produce chicks. Yes, definitely, it's got a very important role.
Sir Shankari has one question. Am I audible, sir?
Great.
Okay. Am I audible to you, sir?
Can't hear your message. Yeah, tell me. Yeah, and you're talking about enrichment, is it? Yeah, yeah, of course. Uh, I mean, there's a whole kind of science behind enrichment of, of pheasant enclosures, uh, and and really, it's extremely important, both for the physiological needs, but also for not feeling kind of, if if I'm using the right word, bored. So I mean, the design itself has to lend to what we are trying to do. Is it for display? Uh, is it for breeding purposes? Are there retreat areas where if the birds are not feeling up to, kind of, they can withdraw into deeper areas? So the ratio of exposure versus, if it's a rectangular uh, enclosure, for instance, do we expose the larger side to public, or do we expose the shorter side to public? And if we expose the shorter side to public, viewing area reduces, but at least birds get respite by receding to deeper areas. That is one, but also then what do we have inside the aviary? The, the plants, some are ornamental, but some are also food plants. Uh, we have seen that uh, uh, furniture like logs, for instance, if you put a log, uh, that for some reason triggers mating responses. So so the male will hide behind a log and suddenly appear on top of a log in its display. So of course these are extremely important, and as I said, there is a lot of information that has actually been introduced on embellishments and kind of aviary furniture, aviary requirements. What are the next question?
What are the challenges usually faced after releasing in the natural habitat?
Enrichments हो गया. Challenges you usually used to face after releasing natural habitats for breeding. Yeah, I was talking about. See, ultimately, we need the birds to survive. So survival is the main challenge. So why should a bird not be able to survive? Two reasons. Uh, Obviously, it's we assume that we are looking at right habitats for release. So that is an kind of a given. But if we have that, so what are the two reasons that could kind of not allow a bird to survive? One, it can't find food, and second, that it gets predated upon. Uh, so food, of course, we will need to kind of train them on finding uh, the wild food, and I was talking about parent rearing, and therefore these are larger areas, and that in those aviaries or enclosures, one should kind of promote uh, a little bit of wild food as well, and allow the mothers to basically find that wild food and teach the chicks what to eat and what not to eat, and how to basically scrap the ground and get the insects out and all that. That is a part of learning, and therefore that comes with from the mother. Therefore parent rearing is extremely important for survival. uh, they also impart skills of how to escape predators. So whether it's an aerial predator or whether it is a ground predator like foxes and martens, or whether they're hawks. So the mother will impart all the skills. Once it has those skills of to survive, then it will. Obviously, not all birds that you release will survive. That happens in nature also. That happens in wild populations also. If, say, for instance, four chicks hatch, probably one might survive to a certain age. So such ratios occur in the wild also. So we should not be too worried that if we release eight birds, all eight should survive. If two survive, I think we have done a fair work.
Shankari is asking if there is any specific perch size.
Bird size. So there's no specific bird size as such. You'll find, as I said, they are, although they will spend most of their time on the ground. Uh, at night they will go up, and a reasonable sized branch is good enough. They'll curl their claws around it and roost there. So providing perches is important. So if you have kind of live trees in the aviary, fine. If you don't have a, a, a dead tree or dead branch uh, uh, strong enough for it to support 2-3 kilos that a bird might weigh.
How are the local communities involved in conservation efforts?
Are communities involved in
Conservation efforts of pheasants.
um, yes and no. No is as a policy. I don't think I've seen anywhere that communities are kind of involved with conservation of pheasants. I know, but uh, in as I mentioned in the case of cheer pheasant, inadvertently, the cheer pheasant uh, likes the habitat that is kind of semi-disturbed in that state, and therefore people who go harvesting grass, who go harvesting shrubs, will maintain that habitat in that state, which is liked by the birds. So the communities might know, but they play a role in conservation of cheer pheasant. And if the pressures, if those pressures are not very high. But in the Northeast, for instance, as I said, one or two tribes have set out areas for conservation, tragopan conservation. So yes, there the community is playing a role, uh, and they have set out fairly large areas for conservation. And yes, they have a in for instance, places like Nagaland and places like Manipur, uh, Arunachal to some extent, where the forests are community owned. There's a very small kind of forest holding by the forest department, government. Uh, the communities then automatically assume a very important role to safeguard those habitats. And now, if communities do it in the name of a pheasant, uh, the better, uh, because they are now trying to also promote tourism. If birders can come and see tragopans there, uh, the areas that they have preserved, and people are able to go and see birds there. So gets a bit of livelihood as well into it. And yes, where forests are owned or run by the forest department, communities don't form a part. But where they are not, and they're owned by the communities, then communities have to play, and some of them are playing.
There are two more questions.
Continuing projects of
WPI focusing on enumeration of presence in Indian subcontinent.
enumeration. Not any that I know of at the moment, unfortunately. But I wish it, the government or the states don't leave it to civil society. Of course, can participate and help, but the initiative has to come from the forest department. That's their primary responsibility.
What are the alternate base material aside from soil that can be used in pheasant enclosure to support successful breeding and post-hatching development in captivity,
What is it?
such as wood chips, grass
Enumeration of
mats?
pheasants. Any other questions? So what are the alternative? In pheasant included to support. Okay, so really, I'm not a kind of an expert in conservation breeding, captive breeding per se, but from what I've heard from people is that, yeah, of course, what you've written here, sand, there's because see, they the galliforms, they need uh, a variety of substrates. They'll need sand to take grit, because the digestion basically happens with the crop, and they need to take small stones and grit to digest food. They'll need dusting areas where they basically dust themselves of ectoparasites. So they'll need dusting areas. They'll need chips, uh, and all wood chips and all. They're largely uh, used where, because in an enclosure there'll be droppings, especially night shelters. In night shelters there'll be droppings, so that doesn't become unhygienic. So there you use either sand or you use grass chips, yes, wood chips, so that you can either turn it over and it doesn't cause contamination. Yes, definitely. Artificial turf, not not recommended. Have natural grass. It's difficult to grow natural grass where pheasants are, because they'll eat it very quickly. So what I've seen people doing is they'll have grass grown in flat pots outside the aviaries. They might have 10 pots with grass. So they'll have putting 5 pots in, uh, and then keep 5 pots outside and let the pheasants eat on that from the grass. Pheasants will love grass, and once those are kind of expended, they'll replace those and keep rotating. Uh, the other way of trying to grow grass without destroying the root is basically to have a, a net over the place where you plant grass, so that the the pheasant doesn't get to the grass and the root of the grass, and the blade will grow through the mesh, and the pheasant will get only the leaf, not the root. So there are ways in which you can basically promote grass, but chips and sand and dust are important components of an aviary and substrate in the aviary.
Okay, sir. Am I audible to you now, sir? Or still my voice is breaking?
Your connection is loose. You start, and then
Now, sir?
Maybe Dr. Natasha might want to.
Okay, sir. Am I audible now? Hello? Am I audible now, sir? Hello? Am I audible now, sir?
Natasha, you carry on. Or Apurva, I can't hear you, but others can. So if you want to
Okay.
conclude, please do.
Yeah. Sir, thank you so much for this very nice session, uh, for enlightening us on zooming conservation. We hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the world of pheasants and their conservation. A heartfelt thank you to Dr. Kaul for sharing his extensive knowledge and passion for wildlife conservation, and especially for pheasants. We also appreciate your efforts in training the next generation of conservationists and continued leadership in IUCN SSC Center of Species Survival India. To our listeners, thank you for your ongoing support and interest in wildlife conservation sessions of Zooming Conservation. Stay tuned for more episodes where we continue to explore the remarkable efforts being made to protect our planet's wildlife. Until next time, let's continue to do work together for a brighter and more diverse future. I would like to conclude the session now. Thank you so much to everyone.